എത്ര നാളിങ്ങടിമയായി കിടക്കണം സഖാക്കളെ, എത്ര നാളിങ്ങടിമയായി കിടക്കണം സഖാക്കളെ. പുത്രപൗത്രരെങ്കിലും സ്വതന്ത്രരായി വരേണ്ടയോ, പുത്രപൗത്രരെങ്കിലും സ്വതന്ത്രരായി വരേണ്ടയോ. ക്ഷതഭയം ചലിക്കണം ഗരുഡ തുല്യ വേഗരായി, ക്ഷതഭയം ചലിക്കണം ഗരുഡ തുല്യ വേഗരായി. സഹഗമിക്ക 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 ധീരരേ, സഹഗമിക്ക 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 ധീരരേ, ധീരരേ ധീരരേ.
Anyway, it's a great honor for me to be here with all of you on this auspicious day of our independence to talk about democracy in this country. When we attained independence, and that we attained independence after a long struggle by a lot of people, our freedom fighters had some dream of what kind of India we want to see, and they basically engrafted that dream in the constitution which came. The dream was to see an India which is of course democratic, which meant the people will rule themselves. It didn't mean a democracy that the British will go away and some others from our own country will take their place and they will rule over us. The idea of our democracy was that it would be Swaraj or self-rule of the people. And the product of that democracy was that it should deliver liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice to all the people of this country. Now, if we examine this question, do we really have the kind of democracy that our freedom fighters had thought of, had wanted in this country? Are we really being able to rule ourselves? Are we able to decide what kind of laws and policies we want in this country? Are the people really doing that? The answer has to be, to a very large extent, not. We are not able to decide. We as citizens of this country are not really deciding what kind of laws, policies should govern us. What we are doing is just casting our vote once in 5 years to elect some representatives who thereafter decide everything for us without even consulting us, without our consent, and often totally contrary to what we, the people, want. And that is happening because we unfortunately made a model of only representative democracy. We did not make a model of direct democracy in this country. Direct democracy would have meant that there were certain things which people would decide directly. And that could have happened in two kinds of situations. One was at the level of the Gram Sabha or Ward Sabha or Mohalla Sabha, where people of that village or that ward or that mohalla could get together, like you have got together today, to discuss any issue affecting them, and then democratically by consensus or majority decide what kind of policy they want, what kind of decision they want in an issue affecting them. Now, there are of course decisions which affect more than one village, more than one ward, which affect a whole district, or which affect a whole state, or which affect a whole country, the whole country. For those decisions, you cannot have a gathering of all the people in the country or a gathering of all the people of the state or the district, etc. And therefore, for that you need what is called representative democracy, where you elect those people as our representatives and they are then supposed to decide. But even when they decide, they should try and involve the people. And one way of involving the people is that you have what is called pre-legislative consultations. You put out what kind of policy you want, what kind of law you want, and then invite feedback from the people. Now that is not being done in this country. The other way is that those issues earlier used to be referred to standing committees of parliament, and in those standing committees they would invite everybody, including citizens, experts, etc., to come and have their say. And thereafter the standing committee would give its report and then the matter would go to parliament. Unfortunately, in recent years, even that practice of sending laws to standing committees has virtually been abolished. And this whole method of our electoral democracy has been reduced to a game of money and propaganda. Today, elections are fought and won largely on the basis of money and propaganda. So those who control money and the instruments of propaganda are the only people, by and large, they are the only people who are able to get elected in the system. And the reason for that is that we have adopted first past the post at two levels. First past the post means when we vote for our representative, the person who gets the highest votes becomes the sole representative of that constituency. And even if all the other candidates together have received twice or thrice as many votes as that winning candidate has received, all those votes in favor of the losing candidates become useless. That means only that person who has got the highest votes, even if he has got only 30% vote, will become the sole representative of that constituency. Then, when the government is formed, the party or coalition which has a majority of members in the assembly or parliament forms the government, and even if the opposition has 49% of the seats, they count for nothing in the running of the government. So, when people go to vote, they know that only one candidate will get elected from this constituency and only one party or coalition will form the government. And therefore, they often do not vote for the candidate or the party that they like most if they feel that that candidate or party has no chance of winning. And how do they? Because then they feel that they will be wasting their vote. And they then decide, all right, these are the two candidates or the two parties who have some chance of winning, and I will vote for the less bad among the two. And how do they decide who has some chance of winning or who has no chance of winning? People decide that or form that perception on the basis of the visibility of the candidates or the parties. And visibility of candidates and parties is largely purchased by money and propaganda. Therefore, those who have more money and more control over instruments of propaganda are able to project themselves as candidates or parties who may win, and those who do not have any money, they fall by the wayside and they are not perceived by people as those who have some chance of winning. And therefore, in this system, only those, that's why Anna Hazare used to say that we are now following a cycle, that those who have money will come to power, and once they are in power, they will use their power to get more money. It's a vicious circle of power to money and money to power. So, if we want to reclaim our democracy, we need to have many democratic reforms in this country. Firstly, we need to decentralize power so that more power resides with the villages, with the wards, with the local bodies who can directly decide what they want on issues which affect their villages, their wards, etc. And then we need to have some system of representative democracy also, which means, direct democracy also, which means a system of initiatives and referendums. Initiative and referendum is a system where even in a large body, say for the whole country, if 10% people in the country sign a petition saying that they want a Lokpal Act like this, thereafter that proposition by the people is put to a referendum, that is a vote of all the people in the country. And if the majority of the people vote in favor of that initiative, then that initiative becomes law without having to go to parliament. That is called a system of initiative and referendum, which is a measure of direct democracy, which is there in many European countries and in many states in America also. India, unfortunately, does not have this at all. And then we need to reform many things in our system of elections. First, we need to have a system of proportional representation. In many European countries, half the candidates are elected on the basis of proportional representation, which means people vote for the party, and if a party gets only 5% vote, then 5% of their candidates will be elected to parliament. You can have a more refined system of this where you say, all right, you cast 2 votes, one for your favorite party, and second, so every party gives a list of candidates. So if 5% people are to be elected, normally it is said that the top 5% people in that party's list will get elected. But you can refine the system even further. You can say, okay, all right, instead of casting just 1 vote for the party, you cast 2 votes. 1 vote for the party and 1 vote for your favorite candidate in the list of that party. Then, if a party gets 5% vote, 5% MPs or MLAs will be from that party, but it won't be the top 5% in that list. It will be those top 5% who receive the maximum number of votes within the candidates of that party. This way, if you put in place this system of proportional representation, people will then vote for their favorite party without fearing that this party has no chance of winning, because they know that even 2% vote or 5% vote for that party will lead to 2% or 5% of the people going to parliament or the assembly. So, this will be one improvement. Secondly, you need to see in the election law there is a limit to the amount of money that candidates can spend in their election. Unfortunately, there is no limit on what a political party can spend. Now we need to put limits on the expenditure of political parties also. Secondly, we are not being able to enforce even these limits for candidates. The limit may be say 95 lakhs or 1 crore, but there are candidates who are spending 10 crores in Lok Sabha elections, even 50 crores. And we are not being able to catch them, even though spending more is a corrupt practice for which you can be disqualified, but we are not being able to catch them because they are spending the money in cash. When the Prime Minister said that he was having demonetization, one of the objectives he said was to have a cashless economy. He said, I want a cashless economy where people transact their business through banking channels and not through cash. Now I can understand that ordinary people cannot be forced to transact all their business through banking channels and they will need cash. But at least political parties and candidates could be made to and forced to do all their transactions through banks. Then, if a candidate or a political party is caught dealing with cash, that would lead to automatic disqualification. So that reform should be made to ensure that people don't spend beyond the limit, parties don't spend inordinately. For example, the BJP received 8,000 crores by way of electoral bonds alone in the last 5 years. If they had spent 95 lakhs or 1 crore for each candidate that they put up, maximum they could have spent 400-500 crores on all the candidates put together. But on the other hand, they had 8,000 crores through electoral bonds alone. They had another 8,000 crores in other ways, so they could spend 30, 40, 50 times of what individual candidates of their party could spend on the election. Therefore, we need to put that limit on political parties. Then we need to have state funding of elections. See, there are several candidates who do not even have this 1 crore to spend on elections. So we can have state funding by way of, if you receive, the government will pay 50 rupees for every vote that you get after the election. So then, if you get 1 lakh votes, the government will give you 50 lakhs. If you get 2 lakh votes, government will give you 1 crore. So that you can take loans from your friends. So that you can take loans from your friends and then pay them back after the election. So that way even poor candidates will be able to get some money to spend on their elections. So this way there are many reforms. Of course, the Election Commission today, as we have seen, has become totally partisan. It is totally controlled by the government, and that is because their selection is being done by the government. Supreme Court gave a good judgment recently where they said that no, selection can't be by the government alone, it should be by a committee of Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice. Unfortunately, the government through this BJP government through another law, they have overturned that. We have challenged that in the Supreme Court. We hope that the Supreme Court will strike down that law and restore that position that the Supreme Court had said earlier, that selection will be by the Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition plus Chief Justice. That will allow us to have a more independent and more neutral election commission than what we have today. So there are many electoral reforms that are required if we want to reclaim our democracy. But I want to now briefly talk about the other issue. That is, we want democracy for what? We want democracy to ensure that in this country all citizens will enjoy liberty, equality, justice, fraternity. Now if we ask this question, to what extent have we been able to ensure that all citizens are getting liberty, equality, fraternity and justice? The answer, unfortunate answer to that also is very, very few. In fact, today what we are seeing in this country is that there are a large number of our finest human rights activists who are in jail for the last 6 years, 4 years, etc. In the Bhima Koregaon case, in the Delhi riots case, without getting bail. They have been put in jail on false charges. The trial is not starting, and yet they are not being given bail, with the result that they are rotting in jail for 4 years, 6 years, and some people rot in jail for 20 years without their trial being completed. This is an unfortunate failure of both our political and our judicial system. Then, equality. Have we been able to guarantee equality? Of course, economic inequality is the highest that we have ever seen in this country, where 10 of the richest families have as much wealth as the bottom 50 crore people in this country. You saw this Ambani wedding. 5,000 crores was supposed to have been spent on this totally vulgar wedding of one man. That 5,000 crores could have meant education for literally millions of people. But this is the kind of inequality, economic inequality that we are living in. But quite apart from that, there is inequality today in this country on the basis of religion, on the basis of caste. We have not been able to, unfortunately, eradicate that, and far from eradicating that, in recent years, in the last 10 years of this BJP regime in the center, we have seen an increase of inequality and attacks on minorities, etc. in this country. Justice, fraternity. I mean, we are seeing that instead of engendering fraternity and a feeling of brotherhood among all citizens in this country, irrespective of caste, irrespective of religion, etc., we are now seeing an attempt to divide us on the basis of caste and religion, etc. And this whole BJP government and their whole propaganda machinery day and night spews hatred against the minority communities in the country. So, and on top of that, you see, in order to protect our democracy and ensure that people get all these liberty, justice, equality, fraternity, etc., we created a number of institutions. One institution, the most important institution, is the judiciary. The judiciary is tasked with the job of protecting fundamental rights of people, protecting the liberties of people. It is also tasked with the job of ensuring that the executive functions within the bounds of its powers. Then we have the media. The media is supposed to give important, honest information about important things that are happening in this country. It is also supposed to engender a healthy debate on important issues before the country. Then we have the Election Commission, which is supposed to ensure free and fair elections. Then we have a Controller and Auditor General, which is supposed to keep a guard on public money of this country and audit public finances, people's money of this country. Then we have all these investigative agencies which are supposed to take action in the case of crimes, in the case of corruption, etc. That is CBI, Enforcement Directorate, and the local police, etc. Then we are supposed to have these universities which are supposed to encourage critical thinking, which are supposed to provide proper education so that people can discuss and debate important issues and arrive at their own conclusions. What we have seen in this country, especially in the last 10 years, is a total destruction and capture of all these regulatory institutions which were created by the Constitution. We are seeing a virtual capture of the judiciary. We have seen, of course, there are still some judges in the judiciary and some sections of the judiciary which are independent and doing a good job. But large sections of the judiciary, unfortunately, have collapsed. And the result is that they are not even giving liberty to these finest human rights activists like the Bhima Koregaon accused or the Delhi riots accused, who are languishing in jail without trial for 4 years, 6 years, etc. We have seen a collapse of the media. The mainstream media has just become an instrument of hateful propaganda of this BJP government. We have seen a collapse of the election commission. The election commission has become a partisan instrument of the BJP, using the model code of conduct only to throttle the opposition parties and allow the ruling party people to get away scot-free. We are seeing a collapse of even the universities. We have vice chancellors who have been appointed to these national universities who are not qualified for their job, who do not understand what education is or should be, but who have been appointed merely because they are from the RSS. But fortunately, one of the good things that happened recently is because of the social media and YouTube and the internet, with the collapse of the mainstream media, an alternative media grew on the internet, on the social media, on YouTube, etc. And this alternative media became gradually more and more powerful, and today, in my view, it is more influential than this mainstream media which we call television and the print newspapers, etc. And it is the result of the good work done by this alternate media that we were able to do what we did in this last Lok Sabha elections. That the BJP did not get a majority, they did not get the kind of majority that they had earlier, as a result of which, today what we are seeing is that despite the fact that the BJP has again formed the government at the center, we are seeing that the BJP, their morale is down and the morale of the opposition is up. And you can see that in the parliament debates, and therefore public opinion even after the Lok Sabha elections of this year, in the last 2 months or 2.5 months, has again sharply moved against this BJP. And today, if I can safely say that if general elections were to be held today, there is no way that the BJP will even get 150 seats in this country. And you are going to see that play out in the 3 state assembly elections which are going to be held shortly in this year. That is in Maharashtra, in Jharkhand and in Haryana, and some by-elections to be held in UP. So, unfortunately, you see, the BJP government became a totally fascist government, totally communal and fascist government. And that has, to a very large extent, dragged us as a country, as a society, down over the last several years. I am not saying that other parties are not to blame. Of course, there is a serious problem with other opposition parties also. In Kerala, we are seeing enormous corruption in the functioning of the state government here. In West Bengal, we are seeing strong-arm tactics being used by the TMC government there. We are seeing problems across the board. I was only highlighting what the BJP did because I felt that what they have done is much worse than what other governments had done prior to this. So, to some extent, I think we have been able to reclaim our electoral democracy in this last election, and I expect that in the time to come, to some more extent, we will be able to reclaim it. But the problem is, as I said, a more fundamental, a more serious one, because our whole democratic system is structured in a manner which throws up almost the worst amongst us to rule this country. And therefore, if we want to really reclaim democracy in this country, civil society and citizens will have to get up, will have to organize themselves and form serious campaigns, create serious campaigns and large movements for all those democratic reforms that I had mentioned. Thank you very much.
എത്ര പേരണത്തിലാണ്ടു മൃത്യുവേറ്റിടുന്നു നാം, എത്ര പേരണത്തിലാണ്ടു മൃത്യുവേറ്റിടുന്നു